Welcome to the Shootin' Show. Stand by for shots fired.
Hello, I'm Johnny Rowland, your host of the Shootin' Show, and I'm standing here with none other than Jerry Miculek, and probably the best all-around revolver shooter today. And I would certainly like to say, and from our good comments from our viewers that saw him a few weeks ago on the program, apparently you thought so too. So we're very pleased. Jerry's going to give us some information about revolvers today. We're going to do some shooting, and we're so pleased. We're here on the Clark Range here, and as Jerry's the actual address here, Princeton,
yeah.
Princeton, Louisiana. Yeah. And of course, Jerry is married to the great Kate Clark Miculek, herself a past world champion.
Correct. Yeah.
And of course, your father-in-law is the great Jim Clark, and your brother-in-law. Now, you want to say a nice word about your brother-in-law, Jim?
Well, you said it. We don't want to talk too much good about him.
Well, of course, Jim Clark Jr., a great all-around shooter. So I'll tell you what, friends, we're out here having fun. I know you're going to enjoy today's program. So, Jerry, why don't you open this week's shooting?
Okay.
So you got something to shoot over there?
I'm just going to rapid fire this bowling pin off the table.
All right, that'll work.
Let's see if we can do it. All right, when the beeper goes, I'm going to start shooting. You got to chase it sometimes.
Now, Jerry, as certainly I know you're a great fan of revolvers because that has been your strongest suit. That's what you've done, has been certainly shoot revolvers. Well, you probably know I'm also a revolver fan, and I think for the new shooter or for the average person who is not what we would call an ultra enthusiast, I think revolver is probably still the best choice of a handgun.
Very good choice, yeah.
So, well, tell us a little bit about yourself. Now, I know you're from here in Louisiana, and how did you get started shooting?
Well, I started shooting back in 1976 competitively with a fellow by the name of Ben Ashmore out of Arizona. He shot with what they called I think it was the Miller Combat League in Arizona, which was predated Jeff Cooper and his group. So it goes back some ways. But I started shooting revolvers about 76 or so. Just trying to see if I could break that record, standing record.
Well, why did you choose a revolver over semi-automatic back?
Well, the main reason was the cost of the equipment was a lot cheaper. You could get a standard revolver, like a Model 27, for under $300, and they're very durable and last a lifetime, compared to a full race gun, like a 1911, which would have cost $1,200 at the time. So the cost was there, and plus the brass didn't eject on the ground, and where I shot it was a lot of mud and such, and I didn't like the idea of picking mud up and brass, so I thought the revolver was a good idea.
Well, it certainly was a good choice for you, obviously. I understand that back in your old neighborhood down there had quite a bit of rain the last couple of days, hadn't it?
Yeah, they had I think 18 or 20 something inches in the last 2 days. So.
Hey, even for Louisiana friends, even for us here, that's a bunch. So anyway, well, Jerry, I know you want to talk to us some about grips and several features you had in mind of discussing with us.
Okay.
Now, Jerry, what was something you were going to show us in particular about, say, relating to stocks or?
Okay. Well, we're going to start with the basic component of a revolver. Is the actual stock or the grip of a revolver. You notice this one has a standard Smith & Wesson target stock, and you notice how large it is on the bottom and how small it is on top. So when you put it in your gun hand, it allows the gun to wedge down as you fire. It's contradictory of what a grip or a stock is supposed to do. You know, it looks good in the box, but when you try to apply it in actual use, it doesn't work that well. You notice a stock like this, pretty much parallel, and it's thin, and when you grab it with your gun hand, your complete hand works to control the revolver.
Now, what you're saying, I think, is your grip and the relationship of your grip on the gun is real important in fast and accurate shooting.
Very, very much important. This way, when you have a stock like this, even on a large end frame, the smaller fingers of your hand, the little finger, you can wrap it around the stock and you can hold the gun. You see, when you have a stock that's real large on the bottom, it pretty much makes your little finger totally useless. You can't get any gripping force.
Well, what kind of stock is this that you just showed us on this? You would definitely call this a race type revolver, right?
Right. These are stocks that I had designed. over the last 15 years or so. I've whittled on them and built up on them and had them made, and this is pretty much the style that I came up with to allow.
Does anybody make this now?
I sell them. They're made
you
by
do?
Hogue, and I market these particular stocks.
All right, so anyway, if someone wanted a stock like this, they could call you here at Exarch
Right.
and actually get a set. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Make it for N frames and K frames.
Uh-huh.
And you notice the way I hold a revolver, it's very important to have your complete hand working on the gun at all times. I like to get the gun way down low in the hand, and the little finger adds a lot of control to the gun. If you got something there in your hand, you want to use it. So it's very important. It'll make an N-frame gun as small as a K-frame. This is a K-frame. You notice the stock's almost exactly the same size. So if you do have smallish hands, you can shoot the N-frames with relative comfort and a lot of control. And they're slick wood also.
Well, and that's important, being slick. Why?
Well, you notice there's no checker in it. It's not slick. When you grab it out of a holster, by the time you present it to the target, if you grabbed it incorrectly in the holster, by the time you present it to the target, you can wiggle it around a little bit. You see, a stock really is nothing more than a spacer for your fingers. It doesn't add any control to the overall performance of the shot string. So if you grab it right, it's just a spacer. It doesn't have to be rubber to make the gun controllable.
Right.
And that took me a while to understand that. I shot the rubber grips for a long time, and I wrapped them with tape, and I tried all that. But the proper grip technique is more important than any other feature on a stock. This particular revolver.
Now I see you've got the finger grooves here.
Right.
Now, how do you rate the finger grooves as compared to a straight grip, like slick grip?
Well, this is a factory stock. It's made by Smith & Wesson. They put it on their round butt end frames, and it's the only set of stocks they've ever manufactured that fit anybody's hand.
Anybody's hand.
So it's a real usable product, and I think they quit manufacturing them, by the way. But you notice that the little finger is very small on the bottom. You can get a lot of control with the lower part of your hand, and that's very important. You can actually hold on to the gun.
Well, we've accused that of companies for many years, and not just Smith & Wesson. All of them were designed and were made by people who weren't really shooters, who actually didn't go out.
Right.
You know, I remember the president of one large gun company a while back. He said, well, the only handgun he had shot when he was made president of the company was an old Webley from England. And I thought, and we run into this all the time. We talk to these companies, and as unbelievable as it may seem to our audience, so many people who work at the manufacturers don't know anything about shooting, about the product itself. And really, to me, that's backwards. But
one of the problems associated with manufacturing a grip or a stock for a revolver is everybody perceives a different need. If I was to take this and show it to somebody else, and first thing they'll tell me it's too small on the bottom, or it doesn't look pretty. So a manufacturer is at a disadvantage when he tries to please
everybody.
A 5-foot woman and a 7-foot man and a 12-year-old boy, only one set of stocks. So they have to compromise. But being a competitive shooter, after you shoot a while, you realize what do you want, what exactly you need out of a stock,
what works
and what doesn't work. So something like this is a good package. It fits the average hand a lot better than what they used to make. So it's a good product. You notice also all the triggers on my revolvers are the standard narrow serrated type.
Okay, now that's something we're seeing on a lot of new revolvers is smooth triggers.
Right.
And well, there's one more. I have one more group I want to go ahead and insult.
Okay.
A lot of the gun writers have their own ideas, and they have some influence with some of the manufacturers. And I think that's where the smooth trigger gun writers said, well, we need a smooth trigger for faster purchase, or maybe in past years. What?
Yeah. Now you see, that's a different part of the revolver game. If you're shooting a PPC style match, or some form of double action shooting that you're not shooting relatively quick, you know, you're shooting 2 or 3 shots a second. It really doesn't matter what you have here. But when you're trying to do any kind of speed or action shooting, you can drive the revolver. I can change my sight picture and where the bullet is going to impact the target with my trigger finger. And this target, this trigger being serrated, I can feel it, and it'll maintain contact in the same spot. And it's very important. Because when you're shooting fast double action and your finger leaves the trigger or it moves from its first relationship on the first shot to the last, you're out of it. You've lost everything that you've gained by a proper grip once your finger slips in the trigger.
Well, now you talked about 2 or 3 shots a second. Well, a lot of people would think that's pretty darn fast shooting, but Jerry will shoot 6 shots in less than a second. So that's when he's talking about speed. We're talking about real speed here. And of course, to be competitive in any sort of IPSC or a competition like this, you got to shoot in that speed range, right?
You want to, of course, you want to shoot as fast and as accurately as you can when you're shooting for time and score. But that's very important.
Well, I think it's important for us to feature this because now a lot of people are rediscovering the revolver. You know, we said for a long time it didn't matter if you had 6 rounds or 16 or 18 rounds in your gun. It mattered what you hit with. And I know even a lot of police officers who were so infatuated with high magazine capacity, they felt like Matt Dillon on the streets, I guess, because they felt like, well, I got enough shots, I'll eventually get them. Well, of course, as you know, we often talk about, each shot has got to be accounted for. I mean, one, you don't know if you're having to defend your home or defend yourself. Well, if each shot, it could go somewhere else. It might hit somebody's house or somebody's child or somebody's pet or someone else, and we just can't afford to spray and pray that they'll go in the right place.
Yeah, very much so, yeah.
So
we'll kind of jump through the stocks and the trigger. Now we'll go through some sights.
Okay.
This one has a standard duty sight, which is pretty much a ramp stainless blade and a fixed rear notch. What you have here is a package that you can never change the sight picture. So once you find the ammunition that you're going to use in a gun and it hits the point of aim, that's pretty much what you have to shoot.
Right.
It's also a very durable package. If you were to drop it, there's nothing there to break.
Right.
If you're a police officer that doesn't maintain your weapon well or your sights, it's always there. The disadvantage of it, you can't change your sight picture.
Right.
So when you find the ammunition that shoots correctly in it, you pretty much have to shoot that one particular load combination. Next.
Well, I had a question about durability. We were talking about the Model 27, and how many rounds? You're on your second Model 27. Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, your first one, you actually retired it. Am I correct?
Yeah.
And how many rounds did you run through your original?
Well, the first 27 I had from 1981, and I had bought it secondhand.
Yeah.
So I'm just assuming that it had over 250,000 at least.
And it's still shooting.
Oh yeah.
Now you said the only part you really wore out was the firing pin.
Right.
Well, that's the part you replaced, I guess.
Right. The hammer nose bushing. I mean, the hammer nose eventually go blunt from engaging the cartridges.
After what, about every 50,000 or so rounds, you said? I'd say that's pretty durable. I'd say
they are durable, very durable revolvers.
You know, friends, this box of Corbin ammunition and this Wesson 41 Magnum are in fact a perfect match for each other. But it doesn't matter whatever gun you may have, like this SKS or a hunting rifle or a 38 Special or a 9mm, makes no difference, because Corbin is absolutely the best factory ammunition that money can buy, period. And also, friends, when you see a box of Corbin on the shelf or you give them a call, realize that Corbin is helping keep the shooting show on the air. They've been one of our most dedicated sponsors. You cannot find finer people in the entire shooting industry. For information on Corbin ammunition, call them 1-800-626-7266. Again, 1-800-626-7266. Tell them you saw it on the Shooting Show. Friends, to advertise on the Shootin' Show, you can call Bobby or Al at 1-800-728-8486. Again, that's 1-800-728-8486.
See, on these particular Smith & Wessons, I have a Ed McGivern gold bead. If you can see that little gold bead on that front post.
Let's see if we can come in on that and look at it.
This was a early law enforcement high visibility site. See, at one time all revolvers were blued and they had a standard ramp on them, or a Patridge front blade, but no distinguishing features on it.
Right.
So it's very easy to lose it in low light conditions.
Right.
You saw black against black. But with this gold bead front sight, you can acquire a sight picture in low light. And it made point shooting or rapid fire shooting at close quarters possible.
Well, now, how do you prefer the gold bead over, say, a red ramp sight?
It depends. You know, the only thing bad about a red ramp is in some of the lighting conditions it'll glare extensively.
And be fuzzy?
And it'll fuzz out, which isn't bad up close. But when you get past about 25 yards or so, you have to, it starts to present a problem.
So you really prefer the gold bead?
Pretty much, yeah. I have it on pretty much all my revolvers that I use now.
All right, let me ask a really good question here. Your speeds, you know, your speeds are, how much difference is it? Say, I see we have a semi-automatic, and you do, of course, Jerry does shoot a semi-automatic some in different types of competitions, and your speeds of, say, for at least the first 6 targets, do you find you're faster or slower with either gun? Which gun gives you an advantage? The semi-automatic or the revolver?
Well, they're about neck and neck.
So what you're saying is you actually can shoot a revolver about as fast as you would a semi-automatic?
Yeah, close quarters, yeah. Yeah, sometimes quick. It all depends on what you're shooting with it, and that's a hard question to answer, though.
Yeah.
If I had to shoot a continuous string of fire, say 6-round burst, I'd take the revolver, because the actual trigger mechanism helps you to reset the trigger. Well, on a semi-auto, your finger does all the work. On a revolver, if you let the trigger go, the trigger reset itself. It's actually easier to shoot a rapid fire group of, say, 4 to 6 rounds than it would be to take a semi-auto and shoot 6 rounds in a row. Now, 2 or 3 shots on a semi-auto, you can pump them out pretty quick. You might get down to 9/100 splits. And on a revolver, if you get down to 15 or 14, that's about as fast as I can go. But just for a small amount of rounds.
For 2 or 3 rounds.
Right.
But when you go through 5 or 6, that's where the
revolver.
advantage. Well, and a point that you made out here the other day, a semi-automatic has the slide that is jacking literally back and forth.
Right.
And the revolver, of course, doesn't have. You would have some recoil, but the top half of the gun doesn't. So that is that why the Bianchi Cup has been so successful with revolver shooters?
Well, the one thing about Bianchi Cup that made the revolver so well adapted to it, your gun had to run 100%. And you never have a malfunction with a revolver. Semi-auto, you have one malfunction, like on the moving target at Bianchi. It comes out and it'll disappear. And if you don't get your shots on the paper, you've lost those many points. Where a revolver, if you have a snap or something would happen, you just pull the trigger again. Semi-auto, you have to reach up there and clear it.
Well, I think that's an important point, because in real life, and of course, all of us enjoy shooting semi-automatics, and for certain applications, certainly they're great. But I think that the revolver has been dramatically discounted because these are not just regular appliances. This is not like a toaster or a mixer in the house or something that, because if the toaster, of course you can set your house on fire for toaster malfunctions, but some kitchen appliance is not going to be critical. And some of you have heard us say before, if you need a handgun for self-defense, you need it real bad in a hurry.
In a hurry.
And honestly, if one of these things malfunctions, well, you better have your life insurance paid up if the other individual that your adversaries are. So as good as these semi-automatics have gotten, we still find that there is a reliability edge with the revolvers.
Well, you've got revolvers like this 625, of course, with the full moon clip. It was fast to reload as a semi-auto pistol. You got the feature here that really makes this revolver an outstanding package is the full moon clip.
Well, and I heard you say the other day that that's especially a good idea in a household with small children.
Right.
You could store your ammunition somewhere else and just leave the cylinder
Leave it up.
unloaded or leave it open, and then you can load it instantaneously. Now the speed loaders have gotten pretty good, but nothing is as good as this, I don't think.
That's the ultimate.
This is the ultimate right
Ultimate
here.
speed loader. Yep.
And I think these, of course, several companies make these. Ranch Products makes these, and they're very reasonably priced. Now, of course, there aren't. I guess Smith & Wesson is the only manufacturer making the 45 revolver like this now.
Right.
And of course, they're a little bit hard to come by, and I think that's one of their better packages. Especially, well, you can take this 45 ACP revolver, and with some, for instance, our great Corbin ammunition, and suddenly you've got a pretty serious, you've got a powerful gun.
Yep.
So that is no joke.
I'll tell you what I'd like to demonstrate. We'll take a bowling pin at a time and shoot it with the different load combinations,
Good idea.
and show you how it reacts on a bowling pin, which actually weighs almost 4 pounds. And in a pin match, you have to drive a pin 3 feet off the table.
It's not just knock them off. You got to push them off
You
the
have to
table.
push them off the table. When the last one hits the ground is when the time stops. So it's very important, your load combination and the gun you use. And we're going to go ahead and shoot one with the wad cutter, and we shoot the one next to it with a 200 grain bullet, then we shoot the one next to it with a 230 grain bullet.
All right.
And see what that looks like.
All right. Now, Jerry, tell us what you're going to do here.
Well, on that bowling pin table, I'm going to start on the bowling pin on the left, and I'm going to fire one shot of a standard 38 wad cutter.
The wad cutter, the target load.
And then the pin next to it, I'm going to shoot a 200 grain bullet, and a pin on its side, on the right side of that one, I'm going to shoot a 230 grain bullet. Give you an idea how the target reacts to the different loads.
All right, well, let's do it.
All right. You ready? All right, here's the 38 wad cutter. Not much going on there.
It just kind of fell over and rolled off.
Yeah.
All right, now the next bullet's a 200
It's
grain.
a 200 grain bullet.
At what velocity?
About 1,200.
About 1,200, yeah. So we see that
It kind of stepped it up.
kind of stepped off right away.
And now we go to 230 grain bullet.
All right. Now we see, now that's as good an example of momentum probably as I've ever seen, because literally the first one just kind of fell over and rolled off, the second one scooted, excuse me, and the third one jumped off with authority.
It's got a lot of energy. Does a good job on a pin.
For more information on the Jerry Miculek shooting classes, please call 318-949-1303. Again, that number is 318-949-1303.
Well, friends, we hope you're enjoying our program, and you know, there is a tremendous amount of work that goes into this project, but I have to confess, when we go out and photograph and are around some of these fantastic shooters, it's really a lot of fun. Yes, it is fun. It is certainly enjoyable to do. Well, sir, how are you doing today?
Well, pretty good, Johnny. Pretty good, I guess. Considering my date of birth, I'm doing real well. We've got some correspondence here that I would like to share with some of you. In the first place, we have a letter from William C. Evans in Georgia, and he says I don't pronounce Newt Branch's name right. Maybe I don't. I'm just going to start calling him Mr. Newt, because he is a great Speaker of the House of Representatives. He says he doesn't care how I pronounce Congressman Schumer's name, as long as it's derogatory. Well, believe me, anything I have to say about Schumer is derogatory. William Evans, we appreciate the letter. I appreciate the letter. We have something that has just been handed to me by Johnny. He picked it up, I don't know where, it got mailed to him, because he went down and appeared at the legislature and apparently ran into this fellow that publishes this thing. It's called CENLA, C-E-N-L-A. Now that's got to mean Central
Louisiana, yes.
CENLA Right. It's an anti-liberal letter. And believe me, it is a dilly-do. I want to encourage everybody to get a copy of it. This thing is, this week or this month or whatever this issue is I'd
just
say
came
about
in.
8. Let's see, 5, 7, 9. This one is 10 pages long, maybe 11 pages long. It's really good. It's just full of stuff for constitutionalists. I don't know that I'll agree with everything that's in it, but I get so much of the other side all the time that I'm just happy to get something that's against the establishment. See in the newspaper a couple of days ago that there was an article that a Texas representative, Representative Steve Stockman, and I want to go on record right now and saying we boosted Stockman
Yes, we did.
for the House of Representatives when he was running. I'll boost him now. I think he's great. He defeated Jack Brooks, who needed defeating, but he not only defeated Jack Brooks, but also he gives a voice in favor of gun owners. A voice definitely in favor of gun owners. He says he's accused the Clinton administration of staging the 1993 raid on Waco, on the Branch Davidians there, to manufacture support for gun control. And I want to talk about Waco just a little bit. This was a case where 96 people died in a federal assault on a religious group. I think it was a horrible thing, and Attorney General Janet Reno's taken responsibility for it. I've given her a name for that. I call her the Witch of Waco. And just as Remember the Alamo was a political cry years ago, 100 years ago, Remember Waco ought to be a cry today. Here we ended up with 96 people killed. They'd been there for years. They weren't bothering anybody. They weren't harassing anybody. They weren't interfering with anybody else's life. And they came in a mass raid by FBI, by ATF, BATF, and heavens only knows who else, supported by the media, by the liberal media. And we saw on television, we saw 96 people murdered, and nobody has had to pay for it. Nobody.
Well, in fact,
there hasn't even been a good investigation of it.
investigation. Well, what about the old boy who orchestrated that, or who's instrumental in orchestrating it, has now been promoted to deputy director of the FBI?
Well, that makes it even worse. That makes it even worse, Johnny, because this guy was also instrumental. I won't say he was the leader, but he was instrumental at Ruby Ridge in Idaho.
Mm-hmm.
He was instrumental in Waco. And in Waco, it's interesting, you know, when they were through, after they burned the place out, the first thing they did, instead of going in and getting all the evidence they could and getting things tidied up the way way an investigation normally does, the feds brought in bulldozers and leveled the whole place so you couldn't tell what happened. I think it is just absolutely outrageous. I am in receipt of an NRA grass fire newsletter in which they referred to BATF as a renegade agency. And in some subsequent newsletter they said something about the BATF and the FBI being jackbooted something or other. And that got Mr. George Herbert Walker Bush upset, and he resigned his life membership of the National Rifle Association. George, I'm ashamed of you. You shouldn't have done that, because if you don't call the murder of 96 people on television, the shooting of a woman unarmed with a baby in her arms at Ruby Ridge without any prosecution against anybody, just excusable murders, if you don't call that jackbooted, I'd like to know what the heck you do call it. Please write me and let me know what it is if it's not jackbooted, if it's not federal agencies that have gone completely out of control. George, that's one reason you're not president today, because you don't stand up for what is right. I'm ashamed of you.
The Shootin' Show will be right back after these important messages. Friends, all of us as shooting enthusiasts should be subscribing to Shotgun News, the trading post for anything that shoots. 3 big issues monthly with literally thousands and thousands of firearms bargains. Shotgun News, Post Office Box 669, Hastings, Nebraska, the zip code 68902, their phone number, area 402-463-4589, MasterCard or Visa for subscriptions only. Now call them at 1-800-345-6923.
Soldier of Fortune has served as watchdog and rallying point for more than 100,000 concerned Americans every month for 20 years. During that time, Soldier of Fortune magazine has always stood fast at the front lines in the battle against oppression at home and abroad, keeping our readers up to date on firearms legislation, the assault weapons ban, the Ranger ambush in Somalia, the Brady Bill, and even more restrictive Brady 2. And we show you how you can fight back. Soldier of Fortune was among the first to expose handgun control's true agenda, the eventual elimination of all guns in America. And we were there at Waco, digging up the real story behind the raid and the perverted political games that resulted in the death of nearly 80 men, women, and children. We were one of the only national magazines to cover the Randy Weaver standoff in Idaho, and the list goes on. And our coverage doesn't stop in the U.S. We also get into places overseas that the mainstream pretty boys wouldn't be caught dead in. So if you believe there's more to a story than what you see on TV, if you like your news hard-hitting and in-depth, if you want to read articles by people who have been there and have credentials to back up their opinions, you're probably one of us. Look for us the next time you're at a newsstand or subscribe by calling 1-800-877-5207. For only $25.95, you receive 12 issues, a full year's worth of unforgettable, important news from reporters who saw it happen. Call 1-800-877-5207. Visa, MasterCard accepted.
You know, I was somewhat shocked at that, and there's so many things going on in this little newsletter. It mentions about some of these New World Order types even want to change the name of the United States, called the New States of America under a one world government. And they want to essentially make our Constitution subordinate to the UN Charter. You know, there's already a movement afoot in the United Nations for worldwide disarmament of civilians, worldwide. They've also got an income tax they're planning for every world citizen to go for the United Nations. Now wait just a doggone minute. They've gone too far.
When they got started, they were already too far, Johnny.
That's true.
They hadn't gone too far. They were just too far to begin with. And if you think you've seen confiscatory taxation, wait till you find an income tax levied on Chinese citizens that make $5 a month, if they're lucky, versus those of us who make $5 an hour, minimum wage, or close to $5 an hour, and you're going to find some real confiscatory taxation. And I, for one, say no. This is not the New States of America. This is the United States of America, and I'm proud of it. I'm proud of my ancestors that fought and died to make this a free nation, and I'm ashamed of anybody that wants a new world government for this country. And that includes you too, George Bush.
Well, it's great cause of concern for all of us because, you know, as we've said, friends, you've heard us say it for years now, in fact, on this program, that this stuff was coming, that these people were out there and they're waiting. And see, the firearm, be it this Colt 45 or an AR-15 or an M1A or whatever else, this is a stumbling block in their path for one world socialism, whereas a few people tell everybody else in the world what to do. And you know, over the years, we've talked about this with various people, and in the past, people say, well, Johnny, that couldn't be. There's not anybody out there that wants to root. Friends, this goes back. This is not something that's new. somebody wanting to rule the world. I mean, let's go back just a few short years in history. Do you think that Adolf Hitler wanted to stop at the German borders? I don't think so. Do you think Joseph Stalin wanted to stop at the borders of Russia? Do you think that going back in time somewhat, look at Napoleon.
Try Mao Zedong.
Mao Zedong.
Or try the leaders of Iraq today. They don't need nuclear weapons for any other thing than to dominate other states.
That's right. Well, from Alexander the Great through the Caesars to Attila the Hun to Genghis Khan, all these people, Charlemagne, all these people wanted a one world. They wanted it all. This is not new, friends, and these people, listen, if they get the opportunity, they're going to do it. And just like with this World Trade Organization, now we're confused with Japan over some dispute over whatever else, and we're going to have to go to the World Trade Organization and talk about it because we're just a member. Well, I am any sort of organization that's going to tell our people what to do from some other country with other countries' vote on telling us what to do. I don't agree with that.
Well, Johnny, I don't agree with it either. You know, I cited to you all a few weeks ago an article in the April 1995 issue of Penthouse magazine. Now, I know Penthouse is a girly magazine. It's a men's magazine. That doesn't mean that everything they've got in it is sexually oriented or everything they've got in it is wrong. They had a beautiful article on Waco, an absolutely wonderful article on Waco, and after going through several printed pages of background and history on it, we got down to this. Why did this nightmare happen? The government's confrontation with the Branch Davidians may have started, and Congressman Sockman says it did, as a kind of public relations ploy to show how good the government was at maintaining law and order by cracking down on cultists with illegal armed caches in weird ways. The trouble is they didn't find any illegal armed caches, and I don't know what weird is. That's what somebody else does. That's what you do, Johnny, that I don't do. That's weird. And then the publicity stunt got totally out of control. Linda Thompson's opinion is that Waco was merely one of the first tests of using federal law enforcement with military and using military tactics, and that's in violation of the Posse Comitatus Act and the anti-terrorism bill that's been introduced in Congress now because of the Oklahoma disaster. Makes some changes in the Posse Comitatus Act and allows the military to act with much greater freedom with the FBI and the BATF, and that's too much government. Our founding fathers were against a standing army. Now the world today requires that we have a standing army. The atrocities that have occurred throughout the world and the peace of our country, not the peace of the world. I don't think we ought to maintain peace in the entire world. It is not our business. We're not big enough to do that. We're only, what, 1/32 of the world's population. But the government wanted to prove that it, and use the major media to tell the government's version of the story to the public. It was a victory for mass propaganda. And Waco has one final, total, chilling message to the people of America, and that is, quote, "It is useless to resist. Don't confront your government or you'll be dealt with."
You know, Judge Clinton has been over in Russia during the celebration for Victory in Europe Day and has done some great criticizing, their administration has, of people who criticize Clinton while he's out of the country. Well, look where, I don't think anybody, and I think that's part of Clinton's problem, I don't think people really consider Bill Clinton to be important or relevant or even sensible. And
well, he didn't mind criticizing his own government when he was in Russia as a student.
That's right.
But
organized demonstrations against the United States.
But now that he's the president, it's all wrong to criticize the government. That's a bunch of baloney. You know, that raises the question now of Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City's taken the headlines away from the investigations of Ruby Ridge and the investigations of Waco, and there are those who would tell you, now I'm not going to tell you that this is true because I don't know, but there are those who tell you that that was the reason for Oklahoma City, to get public emphasis and the media off of this business of Waco, Ruby Ridge, and investigation of what the NRA calls a renegade agency, and I'm still waiting to hear from George Bush and find out what he calls it.
Well, you know, Judge, the point you made a little earlier about what you or I might think is weird on somebody else's part, well, this country was founded, and let's get this straight. He and I do not think each other are weird. We're pretty doggone normal, decent people. I'd like to say that. I mean, for the record, that's right. But, you know, just because someone is living their life in a different way than you or I deem fit, as long as they're not bothering you or I or hurting anyone, or certainly no innocent victims, I think that this country was founded certainly upon religious freedom, about freedom to be as individuals, because they'd had enough of big government, they'd had enough of a state religion in Europe, and they'd had enough of literally being enslaved. And I think that's what it's about. And something else I want to mention, on the internet, the past few days, or maybe it's been the last week, the internet, there's been rumors flying like crazy that the government is planning another Waco somewhere. Now, I don't know, we don't know. This is something that there's rumors out there flying, but there are some pretty good rumblings about who knows what the Reno Express is going to pull next.
Well, you know, Johnny, it's been reported that a lot of the people that were killed at Waco were killed with .45 caliber pistols. It's also been reported that the Branch Davidians didn't have any .45s. So I wonder just where in the world those .45s came from, and what kind of, and who had the guns that fired .45s and killed the Branch Davidians that were killed by gunfire.
Well, there's so many things. You know, we talked to witnesses who had been inside the compound there, and while they were negotiating with David Koresh after the battle ensued, you know, every day there were attorneys, different people in and out of there, and I have listened to people, a sworn testimony, saying that there were bullet holes from the ceiling down through to the floor, where you could see the bullet hole in the floor and the hole matching from the ceiling, whereas somebody was shooting inside that house from up above, as in from a helicopter or whatever else. I mean, this is something that I have personally heard from people who were inside the compound talking to Koresh.
Well, Johnny, this is a reason why there needs to be a full-scale congressional investigation on this, perhaps an independent prosecutor. There are a lot of unanswered questions about this, and you know, it's kind of like Colonel Sanders investigating the chicken house. The present administration, it happens that a little over 200 years ago, people in this nation, this young fledgling nation, got tired of George III. You know, I'm kind of tired of Bill the First.
Well, I certainly think that a lot of people share that, and we're going to have an opportunity in '96 to do something about it. What I think most of us are in fact tired of is government encroaching on every detail of our lives. We're tired of being classed as a member nation of the United Nations. We're tired of the leanings toward New World Order. Like you said, we don't want to be the new states of America. That's not going to fly. And see, as long as we have a citizenry, you know, in Athens, I believe it's Athens, Tennessee, and I stand to be corrected, I believe it's Athens, Tennessee, that back in the 40s, they had a corrupt city government, and you know, the citizenry in the town rose up and arrested their city government. They actually did, and it worked. I mean, the people had their government was apparently so corrupt, it was so bad. And we need to research this. And I do stand to be corrected if my dates or places are wrong, but I believe it was someplace in Tennessee where the citizenry, the armed citizenry, actually said enough's enough. And they arrested the city administration, and they were tried for the people in government were actually tried for abuse of some other things. And we need to research that. If some listener out there knows more detail on this, I wish you'd give us a call or drop us a letter. But as long as you have an armed citizenry, see, you can never have a police state. And these people, in fact, they want a police state. And as long as we're out here with these guns, that can never be.
Johnny, I couldn't agree more. I'm concerned about it. I remember from my high school civics class back in 1930 something or other that they were talking about expansion of federal power, and they didn't know anything about expansion of federal power back then, but how it was being done partly through grants in aid, and this was new then, that the federal government was shoveling some of the tax money back to the states, but doing it with conditions tied to it that would require the state to do something the feds wanted them to do that the state obviously didn't want to do. And that's wrong. It's been carried to an illogical extreme. I think that the present Republican Congress is bound, bent, and determined to do something about it. They'll probably get some vetoes from a president that apparently wants to expand federal power instead of contract it. Although I think I've heard him say something about reducing the size of government. I haven't.
Well,
seen,
he said a lot of stuff.
I haven't seen a lot of action.
Hadn't seen
in
any
that
evidence on
regard.
that.
But it bothers me that the message of Waco is it's useless to resist. Don't confront your government or you'll be dealt with. Who was the man that said, I disagree with what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it?
Nathan Hale, wasn't it?
I don't know. It was some...
Oh, he said, I regret I only have one life to give for my country, I believe.
That's correct, Johnny. And it seems to me that it was some English orator, some English prime minister, a politically influential person. I disagree with what you say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it.
Well, the problem is the people on our side have not had the opportunity, and this is one thing that the talk radio programs such as ours are doing. We are finally getting to reply for all these years of lambasting by the liberal media and the left liberal types in Congress, and we're actually having a chance to have our say and just tell the truth. See, the problem is the American people have not had the truth for so long, and the truth has been adjusted and has been colored by the media for so long that, heck, people don't know what to believe. Well, that's why we're here, friends, and we do appreciate all of your support. Our gun club members, really, we appreciate you so much and your efforts, and you know, we're always looking for more sponsors for this program because it's expensive what we do, and we have to get our message out as gun owners and citizens.
Well, I would commend any member, any listener that wrote George Bush and asked him just what he would call Waco and Ruby Ridge if it wasn't a jackbooted government. But there's been a documentary published, made, a video documentary on the Waco incident. It's available from Southwest Video. I don't know what it says. I haven't seen it. But I know that it's available. The number is 800, toll-free number, 284-7566. Let's say that again, 284-7566. That was produced by David Hall of KPOC TV in Oklahoma. I wonder if that's Oklahoma City.
I don't know.
He's been a major investigator of the government's mishandling of the Waco disaster, and they produced that documentary. Those of you who might like to have it, 800-284-7566. I believe I'm going to write and get a copy. I'll call and get a copy of it too. There we are. Good luck. God bless you.
More and more often, women are faced with protecting themselves and their homes. But another way of protection is through information. And we at the Shootin' Show believe that the New American Magazine has the best information that you can possibly get.
You can get the New American by calling 1-800-727-TRUE. And those numbers, of course, are 1-800-727-8783. The New American, $22 for a 6-month subscription. It comes twice a month Friends, you need this magazine if you want to know what's going on, and in times like this, we need both of these. We need our guns, and we darn sure need our information. And now let's rejoin Harold Terry with the Firearms Training Institute.
This is the grip that we have on the range. The 3 fingers grip around the stock, the thumb's on the far side, the trigger finger lies on the side of the frame. Never for any reason, Johnny, do you cock your gun before you walk through the house. This is a single and a double action revolver. Single, you cock the hammer and pull the trigger. Double action, you pull the trigger all the way through. So this is the way we shoot the gun, and our finger stays off the trigger until the muzzle is pointed at the target. A lot of people say they like a good defensive shotgun. But have you ever, and you can try this in your home, take your shotgun in one hand, your flashlight in the other, and see how well you perform. With practice, I guess you can do well, but if I have my revolver in one hand, there's a way that we teach with the handgun.
Now you just said some people would argue the need for handguns, period, and you have just said one of the great things. Let's take a full stock shotgun, and let's take our flashlight, and let's try and manipulate around, open some doors and things around your house. Well, it's just not going to be a very viable thing. Now then, if you're in a barricade situation, if you're under attack by a criminal element or a gang type, and you're in a barricade situation, heck yeah, shotgun's everything. Shotgun is greatest as far as defensive weapon, most devastating weapon I can certainly imagine. But the handgun's main advantage is portability, I would think.
And availability.
And availability, absolutely.
But getting back to the house, the noise that you have, we teach what we call it is the safe room. The safe room is generally the master bedroom. And if our children are sleeping close to us, we hear a noise, we go get the children, bring them into the safe room, shut the door, lock it, call 911, and get behind the bed. Material things we can buy. Children are accidents so much that people say, but they're not trained. Mm-hmm. And any time you say that the gun dropped and went off, it's because they pulled the trigger. And there's no way to accidentally pull this trigger because it weighs 16 and a half pounds to pull the trigger to make it shoot. Mm-hmm. Unfamiliarity. Johnny, I wish that everybody, and I think that in Louisiana here, they're talking about a concealed carry law, which I am all for if they have a training program. I'm an NRA, National Rifle Association, police firearms instructor. We have a program set up that we train people, and this is the way to do it. Mm-hmm. I agree wholeheartedly that if we're going to have the concealed carry law, then we should have a training program to teach the people how to take it. Mm-hmm. And if they don't pass it, they don't get the concealed carry.
Well, I think I would certainly agree with you. We've had a parish-wide law for several years now, and thankfully, we just haven't seen the problems, to quote our Representative Roy Brunn on last week's program. We just haven't had the difficulties, but for statewide carry, which is being considered now, I think that this is a wonderful idea because there are places to get proper training. There's a school like yours. There are other schools available, yeah. And
Jim's going to come in, and I know we don't want to run out. We don't infringe on our good friendship, but there is a way and a correct way to draw a gun. So many people, and this is a problem that we find, that don't go through the right procedure. Jim, I know you're fast, but go through it very slow and let the people see how to draw. First thing, he draws the gun up, unsnaps the safety. Here's his trigger finger outside of the hammer, outside of the holster, I mean. As you pull it straight up, Jim, and the gun turns, the other hand comes to meet it if he's going to shoot two hands. Now the muzzle's pointing the target, and then Jim puts his finger on the trigger and fires it. You don't need two hands to take your gun out of the holster or two hands to put it back. The finger, as he leaves the target, the trigger finger comes off. Let's do it again, Jim. That was very... Now, he grips it, thumb safety off, trigger finger's outside of the holster. He draws it, turns it, pointed straight to the target, up and eye level.
Well, now, Harold, we've all seen people that will draw a gun. Just let me kind of work with you here, Jim. we've seen people that will draw the gun and put it up like this here. We've seen that.
No.
Now tell us why that shouldn't be done.
Well, because you cover the person that you're going to aim at. As the gun comes out of your holster, you just point it straight at the person. If you're going to shoot him one-handed or two-handed, you overlap it, and the time that you push it right to that man, bam, then it goes off. But we call it the Tom Mix, and a lot of people nowadays don't know who Tom Mix was, so we'll just say John Wayne.
Okay.
And I think that they threw it over the head so that they could thumb cock it while it came down. It's the only guess I can make. But when you see a man handle a gun like we see men and women handle guns down here, they need the training, and that's why they're here.
Well, the problem, they've been watching TV and movies, hadn't they, Harold?
Too much, yes, sir.
You know, I still want one of those porcelain Glock 7s that someone referred to in a movie a while back. A porcelain Glock 7 which has never existed, that will go through a metal detector at an airport. You know, and these are people writing movies, and people see this stuff and they believe it. You know, and it irritates me to no end on some of the absolutely ridiculous gun handling that we see. That's just like some of these Congress people who think that semi-automatic guns with a 20 or 30 round magazine shoot for days, because you know what, they've been watching movies with some of the machine gun characters or wielding machine guns. Well, heck, friends, they'll shoot 50 or 60 rounds and run over here and shoot 50 or 60 more, and they'll shoot. What the viewer doesn't see is they have a stop action in the camera, and they are handed another loaded magazine or another whole gun, and it's just to continue the action. But people believe that stuff.
Well, I have to go back to the old movies we saw on Saturday morning, you know. Them cowboys never reloaded.
No.
And they were shooting revolvers.
That's right. Single action Colts that actually only anybody ever carried with 5 rounds. Well, heck,
sure.
We've all seen them shoot 30 and 40 times.
I think the misconception and the unfamiliarity, owning a gun does not make you a pistol shooter.
For more information on the Firearms Training Institute, please call 318-861-7534 or 318-949-4322. We as Americans have the right to choose or pursue the best of anything. But when it comes to ammunition, for handgun or rifle or even some specialty calibers, Corbon is the best.
If you would like to advertise on the Shootin' Show, you can call us at 1-800-SAVE-YOU-GUN. That's 1-800-728-8486. Our staff will be very happy to talk to you. Well, friends, it's happened again. We've run out of time for today's program. From Kurt, the judge, myself, we want to thank everyone for being with us for today's program, and we look forward to seeing you on the next show.